The new Alderson backpack sanding machine is far easier to use than our original pole sander. All the weight of the machine is carried on the back, with the sanding head being the only part needing to be controlled. The sanding head is very light and it is positioned a lot closer to the operator. The head can be rotated to suit any sanding angle. There are basically only two rules to remember when operating this machine. Rule number 1, keep the disc flat on the surface being sanded, and rule number 2, don't push too hard on the disc. The sanding head will tell you if you're not doing either of these things right, because the head will bounce around and be hard to control. To solve this, simply back off the power, concentrate on keeping the disc flat, and then gradually increase the power again. It doesn't make any sense to use the disc on its edge anyway. Two things happen when the disc is used on its edge. The edge wears off first, and then you can't sand up underneath the overlapping boards. And anyway, you end up wasting the disc because you only use half of it. Using a disc on its edge, especially when using one of our primary stripping discs, will cause cupping of the boards. This cupping of the boards can happen very quickly if you do what we call heel to toeing. If you swing the sanding head by simply moving your arms left and right, the leading edge cuts into the board first, followed by the trailing edge as you extend your arms further away from you. The way to keep the disc flat is to hold your arms rigidly and sway your body gently from side to side. When stripping paint, don't try and remove all the paint on the first pass by pushing hard on it or slowly nibbling at the paint. This will cause undulations on the boards. Let the disc pass over the surface several times until the paint is removed. This will ensure that the timber is not damaged by being too aggressive, especially since the primary discs are quite coarse and they rotate at around 7,500 RPM. We have a range of different discs for different purposes. There is the acrylic sanding discs. These are sandscreen mesh discs designed for removing loose and flaky acrylic paint. This disc rips the flaky stuff off, feathering the paint at the same time. They will not strip paint back to bare timber. For stripping, use our primary stripping discs, either 16 grit or 24 grit. These discs should be used in conjunction with our Alderson stripper, which will make the primary stripping discs last up to 3 times longer. These discs do leave score marks, and these are removed by using either the 60 grit or 80 grit finishing disc. As a rule of thumb, you should double the grit size to work out the equivalents to dry sanding grits. So our 60 grit, for example, is the equivalent to a 120 dry sanding disc. This is because the water creates a slurry that acts a bit like a polishing agent. Remember, rule number 1, keep it flat, and number 2, don't push too hard.